obviously this is eventually goes through an editing process.
Chris.
So if there is some, what's his name?
Chris.
So I go Chris.
But just give a 3 to 4 second.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Jiu-Jitsu Syndicate. Episode number 4, Stand the Fuck Up with Greg Lyon. A street fighter, protector, Army veteran, best friend, brother, mentor, uncle to my 5 children, patriarch of his family, and a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Greg Lyon, welcome.
Thanks, buddy.
Long time.
I know, it's been a minute since all of this happened. I know, it's been a minute. I haven't been up here once.
I'm super happy you're here. I've known you for well over 26 years, since before the birth of all of my 5 kids.
Yes, I was there with you before your oldest son.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember distinctly early on in my young years crashing on your couch when you lived in Inman Park when I was doing my rotations at Greg Lyon Hospital. And I remember I would go out and meet you when you were doing security for different clubs and bars. And I had no idea what martial arts was as far as fight-wise, but I do remember seeing the stacks of Black Belt magazine. And I remember when you first started getting into martial arts, which is I'll get into in a second. But I just remember the ability for you to de-escalate a tense situation verbally into ending up into like, hey, high five, all right, it's all good. And I didn't know at the time that that's martial arts, your ability to walk away. And I've also seen the other flip side where if your inability to de-escalate a situation, your ability to deconstruct that guy's stand-up, whether he's coming at you with a cross or wielding an axe at you, which has happened, right?
An axe handle, but yes.
I just thought that was just street fighting. I had no idea until I started training with you 7-8 years ago that that's martial arts. You are, in all sense of the terms, a martial artist.
Well, let's not get carried away, but I appreciate all of that. I will say this, though. You're right, because decades ago, when you would come into the city and you were doing rotations and you witnessed some of that, I was at the beginning of my martial arts journey back then. We're talking, I mean, I know we've known each other decades. Well, you met me long before I started martial arts. Because I started martial arts and I started kind of like you, not in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but that's like you and I both found our way there. But I started doing Filipino martial arts, Kali, and Jeet Kune Do. I started doing some other things first. But it's funny you bring that up. I want to hit on something you said that's important. The ability to de-escalate. I know we've all heard that from all types of martial artists, but people that know how to fight typically try to avoid the fight, right? That's the whole point. It's usually the guy that has no idea what he's doing is the one that starts the fight. But anyway, and that's part of being a good martial artist is figuring out a way not to use the skills you have.
How long have you been training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
On and off for years. Like I told you,
in totality.
In totality, I don't know. Maybe 10 years in totality. But I had like over a dozen-year break. I'm one of those guys. What was I? A blue belt. I tweaked my back one day, and I didn't go back for like 13 years. Biggest mistake of my life. Because I could have gone back in a couple of weeks. But life happened, and for whatever reason, I didn't go back in the mats. And it took 2018 is when, what is it? Where are we now? 25? Yeah, 2018, January specifically, I'll never forget, is when I walked down to X3, walked in the door and said, I'm going to do this again. And I was really unsure. I didn't know if my back was going to hold out. I always was in the gym and did workouts or whatever, but I didn't know what was going to happen. And here I am, 8 years later, 7 years later, let me do the math right, 7 years later. And of course, I'm sitting here with a brace on my knee and a crutch, but that's okay. I'll be back.
I mean, how many times is just a bare economy? I just, trained with somebody and like, you got me 7-8 times.
Yeah, but you were on your path. That was.
So how long have you been around? But you just picked the 2 years.
Over a year, right? That would have been December 23 because you were at my promotion. No, it's a year and a couple months.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, wait a minute. It's April. God, time's flying. So it's been about a year and 4 or 5 months.
What's very unique about you, you're a non-competitor, but a competitor on the streets. And what's very unique about Greg, and anyone that knows him can tell you, your jiu-jitsu is strictly practicality and fundamentals.
So, yes. And I will say I did compete when I was a white and blue belt 20 years ago. So I've done, 6, 7 competitions. One day when I'm not injured, I'll get back in the competition ring again. But another point, I looked at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Everyone starts martial arts for different reasons. And 20 years ago, there were competitions. People competed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But many of the people I trained with and the coaches I had looked at it as a self-defense, a street fighting art, as survive the attack on the street. It wasn't geared towards competition per se. And I know for me personally, especially of working security and in and around the nightclub and bar scene years ago, I wanted tools to use to handle situations that I couldn't de-escalate. And so for me, like you talked about, I look at this. That's why I like underground martial arts, where you train so much. I like that.
Oh, you train there.
The coach, of course, I train there. Oh yeah. He looks at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but he likes to warm up his students with some type of stand-up street fighting scenario, and at least makes you think about the real world outside of the dojo or the competition ring. Because what happens outside the street is totally different than what happens in the ring or on the mat, per se.
Now, the reason why this episode is titled Stand Up, I'm a lazy jiu-jitsu guy, guard guy, right?
You said it.
And I remember you started standing up with Hollywood. And you said something to me that now I start standing up. We could thank Chris Howard, right?
Of course.
Went on top, stand on top, be the guy on top. You said, Mikey, if you're on the street and a guy blast doubles you and you don't know how to defend it, you're fucking dead. I hope I can say the F word on YouTube, right?
Yes, you can say the F word on YouTube.
You're fucking dead. And
yes,
that's a legit true statement.
Yes. I think the beauty of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is that you can pressure test the martial art at 100%, as long as your training partner agrees to, on the mat. And the other unique part of that is with us and Jiu-Jitsu players, especially at my school, we always start standing. And starting standing, I think, is crucial, especially if you're looking at this as a self-defense art. If you're going to find yourself in a bad situation on the street, nobody is going to walk up to you, shove you in the chest, and then immediately sit down at your feet and say, come get me. That's not real life. The average person is untrained. They're going to throw punches, they're going to swing, they're going to flail, they're going to try to grab you, and it all happens on your feet. It's very rare. It's very rare for fights to start sitting. And so by training, or at least practicing, and having, like, for you and I, we're in our 50s, right?
Yeah.
We train at schools, we train with people half our age. There's nothing worse for a 50-plus-year-old to have some competition blue or purple belt come after you like he wants to murder you. He's 25 years old, he's great shape, but at least it gives you, what I mean is this. When they're trying to take you down, if you don't know what that feels like, when it happens to you in the street, you're going to be caught off guard, you're going to be surprised, and you're going to be at a disadvantage. So if you spend time on the mats, having people trying to take you off your feet, you're going to train. Yeah, you're going to develop your skill set. But the biggest thing is this: most people in a real fight that aren't trained fighters can't handle their high. The adrenaline dump, yeah, they might get a little euphoric. They're not going to feel pain per se, but they usually gas out quick, and they don't know how to control the fight going on. Jiu-Jitsu players, people that I've seen, that I've worked with, that I've trained with, that have this type of training are usually a lot more relaxed, a lot more calm in the fight, can control a very volatile situation, and potentially your attacker, whoever this person is, you can wrap them up, whether it's put them to sleep or not, or even if you have to do that, until help gets there, or you can, disentangle yourself and get away. So if you don't train for that, if you don't train for what could happen when you walk outside your front door, then you're not going to be ready for it. And that's the beauty of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, especially when we talk about standing up.
Sure.
To me, anyway, you have to know what that feels like. It's the worst feeling in the world when some college wrestler, purple belt, who's half your age, shoots and puts you on your back. But when it happens to me, I just smile. I think it's great because I know in my mind, my brain's I'm 3 steps ahead trying to think about how I'm going to defend that, get out, reverse, whatever the case may be. But if you don't practice that and happens to you in real life on pavement, you're going to be in a world of hurt.
You're done. Sure. I want to rewind back to you getting back into Jiu-Jitsu because it was this story, your story of basically how you got your blue belt back is what got me into Jiu-Jitsu. I absolutely love this story. And I think the listeners are going to be like, yeah, hell yeah. Like, no. But so bring me back to X3. You've been off because you're back. Tell me what brought you back to Jiu-Jitsu, and then just take me to that one moment where you got your blue belt back. And who'd you get your blue belt with originally? Under who?
I don't know. I've been given blue belts a couple of times in my career. Bull. He was an Alliance black belt. He worked in the bar scene of Atlanta decades ago. He was a monster, 300-pounder, 6'3". That's why I like side control so much, because of Bull. But what happened was I got back into Jiu-Jitsu. I'd been thinking about it for a while. And one day, an email set me down to X3. We'll just leave it at that. An email went, and I looked at it like, let me go down there and try this out. I don't have any of my stuff anymore. I didn't know where I had a blue belt. I didn't know where it was. I didn't have it with me. Turns out it was buried in my parents' basement in an old bag of mine. But I decided to go down there. I got my rental gi from X3, the gi top. I think I still have that somewhere. X3, it's mine. And I went in to train, and wow, it's one thing to take a month off and get on the mat, but try to take a dozen years off. Gosh. So it was brutal in the sense that this is exhausting. What am I doing? But I realized after a couple classes, my back is okay. Everything's fine. I can do this. Now you're asking about, so I went down there. I just got a rental white belt, but I hadn't trained. I figured there's no way these guys, Jiu-Jitsu had advanced over the years. I am a white belt through and through. I don't remember anything. Well, true, maybe not so true, because it's weird. Even the stuff over 10 years before, it was still there. And so do you want me to tell you the story? One day, it's in gi class. I've got a guy on top of me.
Who's your coach, though? Who was your coach at the time?
Gabriel Tobe. Yeah, he's, I believe he's coaching in Israel now. He's a a judo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitor. The guy was amazing. And he was watching.
Be real.
Yep. He was watching. And I'll never forget this because we were wearing the gi. Guy on top of me was on top of me in north-south. So I was able to kind of roll up on my shoulder, bring my feet over and hook them in his belt. And I twisted and pivoted out from on the bottom and put the guy in my guard. And Gabriel stopped was like, wait a minute, because he knew I trained for a while, like over 10 years ago. He's like, well, then he looked at me and goes, well, he stopped me. He goes, hey, how long have you trained? And I'm like, well, I trained for a couple of years. He said, a couple of years? He goes, I was a blue belt back in like 2004 or 2005. No. You're a blue belt now. So I'm like, okay. Anyway, it's, technically once you're a belt, you're always a belt. But anyone that's taken time off knows, wow, you're rusty. The mechanics are gone. The pistons aren't firing. Your timing is off. So I went through some old stuff at my parents' house, and because they live. I live in the city. They live in the burbs, and I found my old belt, my old blue belt.
What was the brand?
Oh, it's a Krugen.
Shout out to Krugen.
It was an old Krugen belt I probably got that thing 20 plus years ago now. It's probably 22 years old. And anyway, it's funny because I showed up to class like a week later, and a couple of guys were like, wow, that was fast that you got your blue belt. Anyway, yeah, it's funny. But that's like the third time maybe I got a blue belt. I don't know.
You've seen jiu-jitsu, you trained it from early on in the early 2000s, right? Mm-hmm. Up to now. And that's a span, Greg, of over 20 years. What in your eyes, what's changed? What are the positives that's changed about jiu-jitsu now versus even some of the negatives that you're seeing now? That Greg Lyon.
Well, me personally, this all stems from the fact that as someone who's used jiu-jitsu in real life, who's been attacked, who's had to use jiu-jitsu for different reasons, I always tell people, to me, it was always the most basic and fundamental moves and concepts that win street fights. And so what I mean is, it's simple. And for me, there are a lot of really cool, fancy jiu-jitsu out there. Amazing stuff. Is it for me? Is it for my body type? I'm a heavier guy. I'm slower than most people. I'm kind of I like pressure. I like to be on top. I like to look my opponent in the eye. I don't like having someone's back, which is weird. It's the most dominant position in jiu-jitsu. I don't feel comfortable there. I like looking the guy in the face when I'm fighting. That's a personal preference for me, especially from scenarios in the street. That is what I like. That's how my knee happened, because I wanted to be on top. So I'm not saying there are negatives because the art is growing and what you see people do now compared to what they did 30 years ago is mind-blowing. In terms of the technicality and the skill set and the fancy moves. But for me, when it comes to especially dealing with people in the street who have no training, if you have a black belt level understanding of white and blue belt techniques, you're not, I can't say you're guaranteed to win, but there's a pretty damn good chance you're going to come out on top of this.
It's really a smart statement. It's really an intelligent statement. I think there's validity behind it.
And even still, when you look at people our age, we're in our 50s, and you go to a school you've got these 25-year-olds that have been training for years. They are competition level, and they see you. It doesn't matter that you're twice their age. You're wearing a higher belt. They are hunting you.
Yeah.
And to me, what keeps me safe are basic fundamentals, whether it's hip movement or creating some space or just these simple frames, these simple things that are really boring to teach and learn, but that's how I learned 20 years ago.
What's your opinion on ecological jiu-jitsu today?
My opinion is, I don't even know what that means.
Ecological jiu-jitsu emphasizes a natural intuitive problem-solving approach, how the mind and body interact in a real-time situation versus the way we were taught traditionally, a more structured technical focused approach with clear instruction and drilling. I think you said it before, drilling is killing.
What's interesting is when you hear it, when you explain it that way, I think back to my early days. I think that's important. The drilling, learning a technique over and over again. I especially think that's good for younger students. Younger, not age, younger in their jiu-jitsu. I look at things differently now, but I've got years of training, years on the mat, where I suppose now, as a brown belt, and I get, one of these competitive, I call them kids, they're all grown men, but they're half my age, they put me in a bad situation. I'm not looking for thinking about a move I drilled 20 times. I'm like almost with my eyes closed, trying to sense where is the way out of this. Almost like you said, intuition, but that's not something you do necessarily as a white belt.
Do you think that's your muscle memory?
I think that's a lot of that. I think it's muscle memory, but it's also years of training with people trying to kill you on the mat. You will, in time, will develop some type of spidey sense, if you want to call it that. In other words, that's the mystical part of martial arts, where in time, decades of training, years of training, whatever it is, you can, without even thinking, feel your way out of a situation, depending on your opponent. Now, there are times, depending on your opponent, you have to stop and think. But again, using those fundamentals to keep the young guys at bay, that's where you get your time. If you need to play a game of chess and go, wait a minute, I can't put my foot there, or I can't put my knee there, I need to figure out a way out. But I think some of the drilling and some of that repetition that I did as a white belt 20 years ago, I think a lot of that was really important. Because I would say there is no wrong answer to your question, like this or that. It depends on the individual. I think that individuals learn differently. Everybody knows as a student, some are good test takers, some are good at these types of tests or other types of tests, or they learn better if they read, they learn better in lecture, from video, everyone learns this differently. But for me, I believe that initial kind of basic white belt fundamental drill over and over and over again, I think that's the kind of class that doesn't appeal to me as much now. I like a more, to me, I guess it's more intellectual or intuitive. Sure. As someone's trying to kill me, I'm just trying to relax and calmly figure my way out of this with least resistance and less energy expenditure.
See, I'm fond of the competition style class.
Now, I don't mind doing that. I'll help someone. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind it. But, that's where we have to be careful. Because I know, I think
I would cry on my way to just train with you my blue belt.
I know.
Just to the competition I'd hide my hand like behind 1 by 1 foot stanchions when they were like king in the mat. I just don't. I don't learn that way. I just don't.
No. It's not that you don't learn that way. You don't want to learn that way.
Don't.
But like for me, I'm okay with whatever we're going to do in class. I have no opinion on the mat. Are there days that I wish we would take it easy? Yeah, I feel it, right? We're both the same age. I got you by a few months, but there are days you're like, oh. Some days I want to do what you do. I just want to sit down, but I can't do that. I feel compelled. Every jiu-jitsu match, I've got to, if this guy is going to compete, I've got to put out. I literally have to put out for him. I've got to give him everything I have and try to put him on his back, because when he gets in that ring, the guy he's facing, they're going to murder him for a $5 medal. Yeah. And the least I can do is help him, at least try to help him train for that.
So it's not if you're going to get your black belt. At this point, when you get your black belt. Right? Well, it's reality for you. Some can argue
yes,
you're a black belt now.
Some can argue that, but I am not a black belt.
So
You have your moments. I have my moments.
We all
have our moments. And someone will say, "Oh, wow, yeah, you're what?" No, I don't look at that. Like I've told you before, I have never chased a belt. I mean this sincerely. All you need to do is put time in there. The belt will find its way around your waist eventually.
Eventually,
and I don't, and it doesn't. If you had asked me now, 4 years ago, I'd be happy being a blue belt the rest of my life. Because wow, does it put a target on your back as you get higher. We're getting too old for this, Mike.
What would be Professor Greg's teachings to his students? What would you want your students to focus on, and what would you teach? I know it would be practical.
That's hard to say. That's a tough question. But forget the business side of jiu-jitsu. Right? In other words, you're not asking me what am I going to teach. Wait, you're not asking me what am I going to teach to have a thriving business. Forget that. If someone came to me and wanted to learn jiu-jitsu, I guess it depends on the why. Why are they in front of me?
I don't want to be afraid anymore.
Okay, so second is, yes, everything is fundamental. I would want to give a student or try to explain to them that if you're training to survive something bad outside your door, that I'm going to have to make you the most uncomfortable you've ever been in your life. And I'll have to do that over and over and over again until you are comfortable enough to realize I can survive this. And now I know a way out. I'm either going to beat this guy, I'm going to break his arm, or I'm going to get away, and whatever it is, whatever you want to do. I'm not saying he needs to go around maiming people, but my point is that I think about what happens outside your front door, because, and to be fair, jiu-jitsu is fantastic on the street, but we train on mats, and that's another thing you have to think about, your environment. Someone comes to me and like, look, something bad could come your way. You could do nothing to anyone. Next thing you know, some guy shoved you, thrown you against a wall, has threatened your family in front of you. Okay, fine. You could be on pavement. You could be on hard tile floor. You have an entire environment now that you have to fight against. It's not just your opponent. It's not just the person in front of you. It's the ground you're on. It's the items on the ground. Are you in an alley? Are you on a street? Is there broken glass? Are there weapons, rocks, cinder block, whatever the case may be, right? And third, do they have friends? So it's not just a battle against one person. It's a battle against all those factors. And for me, I would want, again, I go back to making someone uncomfortable. Like right now, how awful is it? Like when I'm bringing the business to you and you've got the weight of the world on your chest. That's not fun. It's not fun now, and you've been doing this for years. Imagine the new guy. That to me is the best thing I can do, is get them so uncomfortable that anything they experience outside that door is going to be easy. They would rather fight a stranger in the street than fight me here.
Wait a second. You basically just described the first 7 years in my jiu-jitsu. You have made me so uncomfortable that I'm now comfortable being uncomfortable on the bottom. And for those of you that look at my Instagram or any pictures I post of this guy, he's always looking at me like I stole money from him. Like he's never smiling at the camera. That's why I love you, because you're going to be the type of guy that's going to make that person better. That's going to take that person from being timid and afraid to not fearing anyone that breathes oxygen.
So, and with you have a family, you have 5 children, you have a wife. I always wanted you that no matter what came at you outside your front door, it was going to be easier than fighting me.
Yeah, for sure.
That's my goal. I want you. I got mugged today, Greg, and I tell you what, that was easy compared to rolling with you for 5 minutes on the mat. That's my goal. That's what I want. The one thing about jiu-jitsu is, and when it puts you, the pressure is so great. When someone's coming after you, and the ability to slow your brain down and calmly think about next steps and figure out a way out of a horrible situation, it also translates to life.
Yeah.
Like life in general. People talk about that a lot. You can talk about that in a blue in the face. So that is me. I'm going to make you uncomfortable. I want you to walk outside and at least having the confidence is half the battle.
Sure.
Because without it, you're going to lose out there.
Who are some of your inspirations today?
Anybody in their 50s that still trains jiu-jitsu. Go down the list. I don't have like inspirations like that. I have inspirations, people that are fighters. And it's not necessarily jiu-jitsu. Is that what you meant? Jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I want to know, hey, who encourages you to keep training? Like, I like this guy's philosophy. It motivates me. If I'm having a bad day and I don't want to go, I need to go. For me, it's
the battle is yourself. All I do, there are days, I've had days like, I gotta go down to X3 and there's a bunch of killers down there and they want to rip my head off and they're competing. And all I do is I do one thing. I just go look in the mirror. I know it sounds crazy. It sounds weird, but you have to. The battle is here. It's within yourself. And that I'm not saying people don't inspire me, but I think I have to find it myself. I have to make myself do it. I have to look myself in the eye and say, go fucking train. Because if you don't, you're nothing.
See, that's a true fighter's attitude. That's a true martial arts attitude. You know?
But I mean, if I don't train, I know that how it affects me. I will be disappointed in myself if I could have trained. Life gets in the way. You've got families and kids and people that need us in jobs that are demanding. That's a different animal. I can't control that. But if I had the afternoon or the evening and I know I've got nothing I'm obligated to do, if I don't go train, I go to bed that night disappointed in myself.
Wow. When you're not doing jiu-jitsu, what are some of the hobbies you like?
Well, these days, I play World of Warcraft. I mean, it sounds crazy, but yeah. But I'll be back on the mats in a few months. But I enjoy, if I'm not training jiu-jitsu, here's my feeling. I think if you're a grown man and you have responsibilities to other humans, whatever capacity, you should do something daily to train yourself, to survive what happens outside your front door. What do I mean by that? Go to the gym, go for a jog, do jiu-jitsu, do something active every single day to prepare yourself for when things aren't going to go your way. So typically, if I need my joints, something needs a little break, I go to the gym. Or I read, or I ride horses. If I'm like completely healthy, horseback riding is a hobby of mine, going to the gym. Like I've got other things I enjoy doing, even bourbon, but this isn't a hobby. We don't encourage this, folks, drink safely.
Yeah, good call.
But I believe that people should do something, try to do something every single day, even for 20 minutes, that's going to help prepare them mentally or physically for the challenges that face when you walk out the door.
Speaking of the challenges that face you walking out of the door, what were some of the biggest challenges for you, other than your recent injury, what were some of the biggest challenges for you that you were able to overcome with jiu-jitsu?
Well, the challenges, I think with jiu-jitsu is, initially it was when I was 30 years old and I was a gym rat, like jacked. I walked, what the challenge is? Walking in the door as a tadpole jiu-jitsu practitioner and have a bunch of guys 20 years older than you beat your ass up and down the mat. It didn't make sense to me. That's a challenge. I think one of the biggest challenges that anyone faces in jiu-jitsu is putting that white belt on and stepping there. That is probably, and that was, I'll talk about an ego blow. I'm a military vet like you. You talk about a blow to your ego. Like, why are these guys half my size with gray hair? How are they just wrapping me up like a pretzel and making me feel emasculated? It doesn't make sense. That's a huge challenge. The other challenge, especially after taking a break and coming back, the biggest challenge for me is the aches and pains, the small injuries, the tweaks, working through that, or knowing, like a challenge for me is like, okay, I need to take a week off and let everything kind of rest.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest challenge. Just growing old in jiu-jitsu is a challenge by itself.
So that brings me to this next segment. So I ask everyone this, what is your recovery? So what is Greg Lyon's recovery system? Are you using supplements? What's your diet? What is like,
oh, you're opening that can of worms.
You've had a long, I mean,
I'll tell you this.
6-7 days a week sometimes, and I'm like, bro, I have no idea how you're not schwacked at the end of a week. I want to know, let the audience know what Greg Lyon's recovery is. 50 years old, man.
So almost 52. I'll be 52 in a month. So I'll say this, 52
in a month?
Next month, I'm 52.
Oh my gosh.
So I'll say this. This is not part of my recovery. I say this usually once a week. So, and I started this a couple years ago. People are going to roll their eyes, but I'm a carnivore. What does that mean by being a carnivore? I eat red meat and eggs. Salt, maybe some bacon, maybe some chicken every now and then, but red meat, eggs, and some bacon and salt. I'm a carnivore, and what does that mean?
I don't think I've ever seen you eat anything else.
No, I don't. Yeah, every once in a while I have a bourbon, and it sounds crazy. So a couple of years ago, my girlfriend and I decided we pulled the trigger and went full carnivore, which means we cut out all processed foods, fruits, vegetables. I haven't had a vegetable in like 2.5 years. I haven't had a fruit I haven't had anything. I mean, once, maybe on occasion, once a year or twice a year. When we go on vacation, we relax a little bit, but otherwise. And what that did is, what I noticed in less than 2 weeks, and other carnivores out there will attest to this, not just me, is that within 2 weeks, I'd say roughly 7 to 14 days, all of the pain I used to wake up to every morning after doing what I do for work and then jiu-jitsu, I would wake up and I'd be the jokes, when you see all the memes online about jiu-jitsu practitioners getting out of bed, they're like, oh, they can barely get out of bed and they've got to have a forklift, stand them on their feet. All of that joint pain went away. We cut all the seed oils, all the inflammatory foods, all the processed carbohydrates, and really all carbohydrates. And all of the pain, especially my knees, shoulders, all of that simply went away. I don't take any supplements. I don't take vitamins of any kind. I take nothing. I am doing peptides on my knee, but that's different because I have the injury. Otherwise, no supplementation whatsoever. It's red meat and eggs. Salt and butter. Red meat, eggs, salt, and butter. That is my go-to remedy, especially for the older guys that are like, I'm a little sore. My joints are getting a bit wonky. That is it. I do nothing else.
And that works for you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I can say this with absolute certainty. Like, it changed everything from my mental clarity to my the overall just next day pain from training goes away.
Are you following anyone specifically, online wise for diet, or who's your biggest?
Well, I want to say that this probably started down the path with two people, they're big YouTube personalities, Dr. Sean Baker and Dr. Ken Berry. Very informative and I did a lot of research about this prior to starting because I knew I wanted to make a change. I knew things were just not right. And you talk about a complete change in your overall pain management, daily pain management. I don't take drugs. We don't take Tylenol, Motrin. We do nothing. None of that on a day-to-day basis because we find we don't need it. It's amazing what happens when you alter your diet and get rid of all the processed junk, how everything from head to toe feels differently. And that it really worked for us.
Now, those of you that are watching, he's held his crutch up, you had his knees. You guys need to know this was from a jiu-jitsu injury, but not. From a jiu-jitsu injury.
Well, this is one of those, hey, this is actually a good message. It's a good tip. And you've seen videos, instructors do videos about it. And what happened was I was actually training with your son. And I had my left leg out at an angle, right? Kind of like think neon belly, side control-ish at an angle, toe to heel. And there was two people training next to me, a brown belt and a very good blue belt, who happens to be 275 pounds. Well, he got knocked backwards and he fell onto my leg. And so my knee separated. I suffered 2 tears, but it was a simple accident. Sure. I don't feel any kind of way towards my friend that did that. It was a total accident, but it happens. Accidents happen.
For sure.
And sometimes when we're in the moment, we're all trading, all of us, including me that had my leg out, need to stop and go, wait a minute, we're too close. Hey, Jaden, let's go over here, right? So I blame part of it on my fault. So he fell into my leg, and I was luckily looking at your son, so I didn't have to watch my knee collapse. I just felt it.
But the audience is that it's not an injury.
It wasn't like someone heel hooked me or I didn't tap.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes, it's not. Yes.
We're going in this conversation, and I don't know who the go is.
Oh, no, he's injured from jiu-jitsu. No, it wasn't as if it was a submission, or I didn't tap, I can tell you this, that no one will ever heel hook this leg again. There will be I don't care if I'm no-gi 80cc world champion. Oh, by the way, you can't heel hook this leg. You know what I mean? Nope.
Well, what's your thoughts on no-gi?
I wonder why you're asking that question, Michael. I know your thoughts on no-gi. So I'll say this. I don't have a thought. I think I believe in, I'm kind of a traditionalist. I think people should start jiu-jitsu and at least start in the gi. If they decide that the competition person in them and they want to go a certain route, that's whatever they want to do. That's their preference. I will say that I have never been, except one time, in a dispute with someone that didn't have any clothes on, right? I have used people's clothing just like you would a gi in real life situations. So I encourage people to train in the gi because the chances of you fighting someone completely oiled down or naked are almost zero. I mean, it's never zero, but it's almost zero. So I think the gi is very practical. Everyone has their opinion about it, but I would tell people they should train both. You shouldn't just train. You can train the gi and be fine, or if you get to a point after so many years, like, I'm going to stick with the gi, whatever, I don't care. I would say definitely train gi, get a few belts in the gi before you forsake the gi and go no gi only.
Sure. Yeah.
And I look at this as a practical, from a practical point of view, knowing when you walk out that door, that the people that are going to come at you are going to have clothing on.
Sure.
Sometimes many layers, and those come in real handy, I can tell you that, absolutely.
What is some of the advice you give to an older person, meaning over 45, professional career, career-oriented guy with kids that wants to start jiu-jitsu or some type of martial art? What would your advice be?
Do it, and why'd you wait so long? Do it now. I would never tell them not to do this.
But
you have to know, I mean...
I have old injuries.
Okay, yeah, no. That's my point. I would say I would encourage anyone to do this. I don't care how old you are. Get on the mat and train. Now, you're right. You need to be careful in the place you go train, right? So it doesn't hurt to do some background. The chances are now that there's probably someone in your sphere that does something. It's very rare now because, martial arts is everywhere. It's hard to get away from it unless you live in the middle of nowhere. But I would spend time shopping. If you live in an area that has a lot of jiu-jitsu gyms, spend some time. Watch classes. Don't commit. Just simply go in talk to them, find out what their philosophy is. If you can talk to the coach, because you're looking for an environment. You're not necessarily there to compete. You're there, whether it's to be like self-defense or something. If you're not trying to do, I mean, you might want to compete. We know, we have friends. One of your friends that was just here is in his 40s, started jiu-jitsu, fell in love with it. Now he's competing.
Yeah.
Right?
Big time.
But I think, there are plenty of people online, plenty of professors online that have put out quick little YouTube tutorials on, hey, look for these red flags at a jiu-jitsu gym and stay away from them. So I would just encourage anyone to do the research, spend some time. Don't walk into a place and feel like you need to commit. Go, if you have 4 schools you're in, go watch a class with all of them and see, some schools even offer classes for the executive, the older gentleman. And that's a great place to start if you're a little nervous about stuff like this.
What is your opinion on cross-training at different schools?
What do you mean, cross-training at different schools? What do you mean? Like, in other words, training with 2 different coaches?
Yeah.
I think that, typically, I would say, find a school you like and stay there, because you don't want to, what is Ghostbusters? Don't cross the streams yet. Once you develop a good base and a good fundamental game, maybe you've got to then branch out a little bit. The difference is like, it might be that in your school, you're a 48-year-old competition blue belt, but there is no one in your school who's a 48-year-old competition blue belt. But hey, they know you know me, and I know someone that's doing the same thing, and maybe we pair them up because they have the same goal, they're the same age. I understand that, I'm okay with. But I think typically you want to keep, especially the new student, so they're not confused.
Sure. In
with one professor, building those basics and fundamentals. Once you get a little older in your jiu-jitsu life, then maybe you'll have the ability to go and try some cross-training, or try a different style of jiu-jitsu, and it won't affect your long-term jiu-jitsu goal.
Let's take a break. All right, we're back from the break. I had a sip of bourbon.
Did you?
Yeah. Greg, you're on and off the mats. You are a tactician, right? You are the quintessential operator that operates operationally. And you say, hey, listen, you need to be prepared for what's out the door. So
yes.
If jiu-jitsu doesn't work, there's always situations where it's never going to work. I guess my question, what's your EDC? For those of you that don't know, it's everyday carry.
Yeah, it depends on what I'm doing, but a normal day that I don't see any additional threat in the horizon, just a normal day would be, I've got a Ruger LCP 380 I like. It's a great pocket gun. I also have a Smith & Wesson Airweight 38 Special, really light.
Point and shoot?
Oh yeah. And that was a gift, a Christmas gift. And I love carrying that. I keep it simple typically. I mean, depending on what's going on, if it's a longer road trip, then I'll bring some more artillery. But you're right. I mean, and I say we, my girlfriend and I, it's not just about fitness or martial arts. It's also, we pack a punch with when it comes to guns and ammo as well. And that's, you and I talk about this. Yeah. You never know what's going to happen to you outside the door, but you never know what's going to kick in your door.
Sure.
And you've got to be prepared, especially, I go back to this all the time, especially if you have a family to protect. You cannot hope that calling 911 is going to save you. You've got to be able to save yourself, physically or with additional equipment.
Where can people find you? How do they get in touch with you?
How do they get in touch with me?
Yeah.
Well, they can find me on the Instagram.
Yeah, what's your Instagram?
It's GREG_LYON, Greg Lyon. Easy to find. I'm open to everybody. They can find me there. Or they can find me, I train at X3 Sports in Atlanta, typically the Inman Park location. I mean, now I'm a little break, but I pop in every once in a while and yell at people. And, or they can find me right here in the Jiu-Jitsu Syndicate home dojo or at Underground Martial Arts in Beaufort, Georgia, with one of my favorite humans, Norman Big Dog, and the guys there, like Pastor Josh and RJ and all those guys. Super. There's a lot of great people in that school. Norma's created some monsters.
He has indeed. Greg, I gotta wrap it up. Let's do a segment 2. There's so much more stuff we can talk about.
Yes, we have a bottle to finish.
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Yes, sir.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.